Tim Froude is the CEO of Sokoman Minerals. SIC is their stock symbol. SokomanMineralsCorp.com is their website. And Tim is, he's in Newfoundland. He's been there a long time. He's done a lot of work in the area. And Newfoundland has really become a sort of hotbed for exploration. So I wanted to start Tim's segment off talking a little bit about the region, what's got people excited about it, and how Sokoman fits into that. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Tim, to get on to that.
Great, Alan, to be here. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, well, you know what? It's about time, really. And I've said this to a lot of people that, you know, the spotlight is finally in our backyard, and very deservedly so. You know, prior to 1980, competitive ground staking, you know, if you wanted to go out and stake a claim and, you know, prospect it yourself, was virtually impossible in most of Newfoundland. Newfoundland was divided up basically into 4 or 5 large blocks that were then issued to exploration rights were then issued to you know, to select companies. A lot of them were tied to the British Crown and stuff because of our, you know, in 1949 we were still, you know, Britain's colony. So, you know, really 1980 was a turning point for us. That's when the Mining Act got rewritten. You know, prior to that there were, you know, again, you know, competitive claim staking was virtually impossible. All of our mining history, which goes back to the 1800s, was for base metals or iron ore. So nobody really considered Newfoundland as a place to come look for gold. You know, even though, you know, all of our gold that was produced was from base metal mines. You know, so, you know, there's gold in the system, but, you know, no one really came here looking for gold per se. That changed in 1980 when the Mining Act was rewritten and Hope Brook was discovered. And up until then, you know, a base metal mine, Buckens, was our biggest gold producer. Produced 3/4 of a million ounces of gold and I think 65 million ounces of silver. You know, not bad for a lead zinc mine. So, you know, we're really now where Timmins was in 1920. Basically, is how I term it, right? So, you know, we've got a lot of catching up to do. You know, we've got all the right ingredients here. You know, we've got the big structures. You know. We've got the favorable, you know, government, you know, who's mining friendly, and you know, a bunch of people that, you know, love, you know, beating around in the woods sort of thing. And, you know, so from 35 known, so yeah, so from 35 or so known gold occurrences in 1980 to over 500 now, you know, that says something, right? You know, there's gold here to be found, and, you know, clearly a lot of it.
And there's a couple of companies that have sort of been making noise, and you have some experience on the ground with one of them. Marathon has their Valentine Lake, I think it's called, and then Newfound Gold has just burst onto the scene in the last 6 months or so. Sort of give us a overview of what's going on there, Tim.
Well, Valentine Lake is a, you know, clearly, you know, our in this province, you know, is the flagship sort of project. I mean, it's, you know, it'll be a mine, you know, probably in the next few years, with over 4 million ounces. You know, I have a little personal history with that project. I actually found the first gold that was ever found on that property. It's now, in fact, the discovery sample would be in what will be eventually the Leprechaun open pit at Marathon. So, you know, I have that piece actually on my mantle. So, you know, it's, but, you know, for us as Sokoman, you know, we're on the same structure, that very same structure that created or is responsible for the gold fluids, you know, that you know, brought Valentine Lake to what it is, rips right through our property, you know, from top to bottom. It's, you know, it's 5 miles long on our property. And, you know, so in 2018,
you've only touched on a small portion of that structure. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly, Alan. Really, 2 kilometers has been basically where the work has been focused for obvious reasons. You know, we're finding great gold. You know, and of course, in our pre-conversation, you know, I mentioned, you know, we have like 25, you know, targets, you know, to test on this property, you know, from number 1 down to number 25. They're all high quality targets. They all either have, corresponding, geophysical, geochemical, an assay or two on them. And, so now with Rig 2 about to join us next week, we hope, or very close to that, we'll now be able to generate news on, potentially, multiple discoveries, and I think that's really, what really gets people excited. Yes, I mean, people have obviously been, following us for the work we've done on our main zones, the east and the west trends, and now, of course, we find, right now we're focused. In fact, Rig 1 today is actually moved down onto a very recent development for us at South Pond, where we cut 5 meters of almost an ounce, including 2 meters of about 2 ounces, 25 meters below surface. It's amazing. So I mean, we just have so much to do here, and now that we've doubled our contract to 20,000 meters from 10, shareholders and interested people, even if they're not a shareholder, they may still want to be interested. Well, basically we're going to be a news story, for the next 6 months, and, I think that's what, people look for. You don't want to make news once a year or twice a year. You got to keep people, interested, and certainly with 2 rigs on the ground now, yeah, we're going to be.
You guys can go at it year round, right, Tim?
Yeah, well, we shut down for Christmas break, so otherwise we'd have people upset. But pretty much it's and I mentioned this to you also beforehand, Alan. The Trans-Canada Highway, cross-cuts our property. The assay lab and the drilling company's home base is an hour's drive west of here. I mean, we explore all-in costs. This includes assaying, at about $150 a meter. Nowhere else in Canada can you do that, and
you got to go down to Nevada and places like that to get those kind of low costs.
Oh, it's amazing. And our exploration dollars, get us roughly 2 to 3 times as much core, as say a company, drilling in northern BC sort of thing, because of logistics, right? Not that there's there's anything wrong with exploring in BC, but clearly, we have a cost advantage here.
Everything's helicopter supported in most of Canada. Your road access with the highway going right through it.
And as well, the property was logged in the past, so we're dealing with cutover, so we don't have to deal with issues with that. It's on Crown land. There are no issues with respect to protected areas or land claims or anything like that. It's logistically, it's perfect. We just need to put a mine on it.
Now, Tim, I follow you guys closely and I comment on you guys quite a bit. And one of the things that I've been saying lately is that it won't, with the high grade gold you're finding, it won't take a lot to add up high grade, high margin ounces. And so really what I've said also is that I think it's only a matter of time before you guys figure out the system and then be able to add up target those high grade and high margin ounces much quicker. One of the things that, really excites me about this is you've talked about another big mine out there and the similarities. Let's get into talking about understanding your system and what it looks like.
Great question. And yes, the F word that you're talking about is Fosterville. And, I've been fortunate. I've actually visited the Fosterville property a number of years ago before Kirkland Lake acquired it. So it was just an average run-of-the-mill mine, averaging, I can't say what the grade was at that time, but I don't think it was 10 grams. Certainly not what it is today. So, obviously it takes time, even in a mine environment, to find out exactly what you have. So that's been part of the issue, I think, with Moosehead in the past, because there have been, drilling campaigns on this property in the past, but I don't think people understood the system. Another thing that I should mention as well is that there's no outcrop, right? So, you're basically you're drilling blind sort of thing. You don't have the advantage of a trench where you can see the veins and, get their orientation and stuff like that. So, that's always hindered, I think, people in the past. And, clearly, we've benefited from their previous work. I won't say they're mistakes, but, because every hole is information, right? Whether there's gold in it or not, so, we've learned from that. And, clearly now, and with a defined model, that actually fits the property. I mean, these rocks are the same age as Fosterville.
Now let's get back to the F
The same
word.
structural history, the chemistry of the veins are almost identical, and I do believe someone who was very involved with Fosterville actually recommended a certain key investor in our company, our largest shareholder, by the way, that he should invest in this property based on what he sees. So
the investor you're talking about is Eric Sprott, sort of the Robin Hood of the business, and he's put a lot of money into a lot of good companies. And one of his biggest money makers was Kirkland Lake. And what made Kirkland Lake is the Fosterville mine. And why it made Kirkland Lake is because Fosterville is high grade, high margin, and you guys are in the right kind of geology, right kind of structural story. And that's what really gets me excited about what you're doing at Moosehead.
Well, the other thing too to keep in mind, Alan, is that as I mentioned, Fosterville was just an average gold mine, prior to discovery of the Swan Zone, which is basically every geologist's dream, sort of thing. One of the highest grade ore bodies on the planet, if not the highest grade. That's 1,200 meters down, right? We're getting grades not quite as high as Fosterville, but multi-ounces, in a number of holes, at depths less than 100 meters vertically. So if you can open pit mine, a gold deposit that's got multi-ounce material in it. I mean, most open pits are what, a gram, 2 grams? We're talking 50 times as much gold. Now, not that
still a cash flow money making machine. So you throw in 20 times that grade, and
now we still have to find a mine, right? So, disclaimer there, right? So, I mean, we have a lot of work to do yet, and, typically it's, hundreds, if not 1,000 drill holes, have to go into, defining, especially a structurally complex gold deposit, right? So, so that's what we're doing basically now is, years ago when a gold discovery was tested, a lot of times people would put one hole underneath the showing, and if they didn't get the results they wanted or thought they should get, they walked at best. They may have stuck another hole 100 meters off to the side, sort of thing, to see if it was over there. And no, right? These things need to be drilled off very tightly, on the tens of meter scale, right? Not hundreds of meters. So that's probably where I think a lot of people may have fallen down in the past on this project, was trying to get the big step out, like go for the home run sort of thing, when a guy on first base is going to score, before
you just got to get the second, third, and fourth, not
you move. Exactly, but you have to go around the bases, right, sort of thing. So
exactly.
but so that's what we're doing now. With Rig 1 is focusing on tightly defined areas where we've gotten good results in the past. We started, in fact, we just moved to the South Pond area, where one of our more recent results was a spectacular 5 meters of about an ounce, including 2 meters of 2 ounces, 47 meters down the hole. So it won't take us long, to get a number of holes in there. So that's where we're going. And so Rig 2, and that joins us next week. We're told the rig should be on site in next week sometime. Is going to focus on the other 25 targets that I was mentioning earlier. We have 5 miles of that structure to test, and basically 25% of that has only been tested to date. So it's time to.
You're infrastructure rich, you're target rich. The Truth Machine has been talking lately. Your recent news release was the headline was 4 meters of 24.92 grams, including 1.6 meters of 61 grams. That's not isolated. You've been doing this for a while now. So let's talk about pending news and let's talk about the work you're doing to create more news, because that's all about news flow, and that's what gets investors excited.
Of course, the assay flow is totally out of our hands in terms of, the lab is, there's one lab here on the island. I mentioned it's an hour's drive west of us, so it's close, but they're also very busy because, pretty well everybody's using them except maybe one or two companies. And so we are at the mercy of that. So, it's still unless we rush everything. And of course, that gets, cost prohibitive after a while. So, clearly when we drill a hole, Alan, and we see, things that gets us excited, clearly, that stuff gets rushed, so that stuff we can look at in under a month, right? Or maybe even a few weeks, if we're lucky. So next week, rig 2 joins us. It's going to start testing, those 25 other targets that we have outstanding, along that 8-kilometer structure we have. Rig 1 will be, basically, as I mentioned, focusing on expanding on areas of high grade, because as you mentioned correctly, you don't need a lot of tons to get a lot of ounces when you're dealing with multi-ounce material, right? So, and very shallow. So, so that's happening. And, it's a 20,000 meter program now. Initially it was 10,000. Now we double that to 20. With the current treasury, that's well in hand. We have over $4 million in the bank right now, so we can easily drill 20,000 meters with still a little bit of gas in the tank, and hopefully by that time we'll have enough results that interest the market to push the shares along the road, because we have a lot of paper out there, a lot of warrants that are at 20, 25 cents that we'll put several $1 million in our treasury. So we really don't need to finance if we can get access to those warrants. So, that's something I dream about at night, is basically, got to get those warrants exercised, right? And
so 30 cents or better, and probably a lot of that'll come in.
I would think so. Yes. Yeah. We did touch 30 just recently, but it was only for a day or so. I mean, normally people would like to see a little sustained, at that level before they do that. So, but yeah, so that's my goal, is to bring those warrants home and that cash, because there's no fees, there's no anything. That's money directly in our treasury, and that's hard dollars too, not flow through. That you're under a time gun to spend that, right? So, it's all very good.
Okay, well, I want to make one final point, and then I want to wrap it up. Not only is Sokoman infrastructure rich, they're target rich, the truth machine has been talking, but there's another important point, and I've always been the kind of guy that watches people. And when it comes to geologists, you want your geologist enthusiastic and excited about what he's doing, passionate about what he's doing. Tim is passionate about exploration in Newfoundland, and specifically on Sokoman. And I don't blame him. When you're looking for something that has the hallmarks of a Fosterville, that's what gets you excited to get out of bed every day. Is that correct, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. I was born to be a geologist, Alan, and and what a lot of people probably don't realize is that I was born 22 kilometers west of that property. I fished on it as a boy. I mean, it's amazing. It's like I said, as a geologist, and especially when you get a number of years under your belt, you've been a lot of places, right? But never have I been, this excited about a project in my own backyard, and have the opportunity, on weekends, to have a cup of tea with my mother, who's now in her 80s, and it's it's yeah. And Newfoundland is a great place to explore. I mean, the government is pro mining. They want, they publicly stated they have a 5-year plan that they want 5 new mines in the next 5 years. So they're there to help us. And so plus, like you said, infrastructure rich, yes. I mean, we have the perfect location for a mine. That's my job, is to find the mine. And clearly there's enough indications to suggest that there could be. Now that's a loaded statement.
Well, that's not too loaded, because the truth machine and the geology is sort of pointing you in the right direction.
Well, you know what? We've crossed a couple of hurdles already. out of 1,000 properties, 900 of them don't get 5 drill holes. People walk away from them. So, the fact that we're now, collectively, between what we've drilled and historically, 200 drill holes suggests, we're getting close to, a point where, it's either this way or that way sort of thing, right? And but we still do have a lot of work to do. I mean, with these types of deposits, as I mentioned, they're very structurally complex. You need to drill them, respectfully, and I think that wasn't done in the past. So it's we still have some work to do, right? And
Well, I hope that in the scheme of things that one day you get to tip your tea glass to your mom and say, "Mom, I found a mine in our backyard," and that's a dream that I think the shareholders can pay attention to. And I wish you all the best in that endeavor, Tim. And I'm going to wrap things up now, but thank you for being a sponsor of this show. I think it's important for investors to be able to see the enthusiasm and hear from companies. So thank you very much for coming and sponsoring the show, Tim. The value proposition for Sokoman Minerals is that they are finding what looks like another Fosterville. And to find another Fosterville, which really made Kirkland Lake into Kirkland Lake, the famous company that they are now, those kind of targets don't come around very often. And they are looking for one of those. And not only are they looking for one of those, the drilling is what suggests that they're looking for one of those. They have hit a lot of high-grade gold, and I've said for a while now that when they figure out that system, it's not going to be difficult to add a lot of high-grade gold ounces. They're really getting a handle on this system and how it looks a lot like Fosterville. And, if they find something like Fosterville, they'll be looking at a $500 million to $1 billion valuation before you know it. And they still got a very modest valuation when looking at that kind of potential. So take a look at Sokoman Minerals.